Hey guys, so this video will serve as a quick start guide slash tutorial for anybody that's looking to develop dApps on Qtum. I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process on all the kind of initial stages of developing a dApp. So we're going to look at contract creation, how to test that contract on a local test network. Once you're happy with the contract working as it should, how to deploy that contract on the Qtum testnet as well as the mainnet. How to manipulate that contract once it's been deployed. I'm going to show you a lot of really useful tools to do all those things, and then finally I'm going to leave you off with a really good tool to interact with that contract that's been deployed in order to connect it with whatever dApp you're actually working on. Let's get started. Here on the screen you'll see a variety of links that I'll be using throughout this kind of guide. These will be really useful for you, so if you want to copy them, I'll put them down below, put them on your bookmarks, etc. So the first one we'll be looking at is right here, book.qtum.site. That's actually the official Qtum developers guide, so let's take a look at that. Here you'll find a lot of useful things. Definitely keep this one in your back pocket, put it in your bookmarks. It'll be really useful to kind of refer to throughout your development process, as well as just in general for developing in Qtum. It goes through kind of the Docker, the rec test. This is like the local blockchain that you can run like the testnet on your own computer. How to manipulate the QCLI, the test and main networks. It goes through a ERC20 token example, deploying the contract, using it, how to manipulate it, using Qtum.js to talk to it, etc. So these are really useful things. Definitely keep these in mind. We'll go through something similar to what this section is all about, kind of like that deployment phase. The big difference is that this guide uses Solr and QCLI for all the things that it's going to do. I'm going to show you a different method. Use which one you prefer. The one I'm going to show you I think is really good because it's nice, it's simple, and it's easy to understand. It'll get you started really quick. So let's get started on that. We're now going to go to Qmix, qmix.qtum.org. You'll still hear another one is qmix.blockchainspaceman.com. They're both the exact same thing. Blockchainspaceman.com is just where we push kind of like the development phases before publishing them to the the official Qtum website. Currently, as of filming this video, they're exactly the same. There's only a very slight difference in one of the parts of the instructions in the help tab. I'll go through that just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So don't worry, use either of them. qmix.qtum.org is the official one, so it doesn't matter if you're on that one. Just wanted to let you know because I'm going to be on this one if you see my URL. So let's go to that. So this is Qmix. You'll land on this kind of main page. You won't see this if you've never used it before. It's going to be like an empty here. You have to create a contract, but we'll get to that in a second. Head on over to the help tab right here and give this a read. Just kind of explains what Qmix is, how to use it, and how to get started. It's really easy, really quick. Here you're going to launch a Docker container. This Docker container is actually the local testnet. It's like a local Qtum blockchain you can run on your computer in order to connect to Qmix and start testing your contracts. It's awesome, and as long as you have Docker installed, it's one command away, right? So just copy and paste this. Open up a terminal. In fact, you can see here I already have it running. I'm just gonna kind of, for demonstration purposes, start from scratch, I guess. Well, not start from scratch, but just kind of show you. So you want to have this running. You want to run this container. If you don't have the image yet, it'll pull that image and start up the container, and it'll run the kind of like local blockchain in the background. Here's the main difference that I was talking about before between the qtum.org and the spacemanholdings.com version of Qmix. At the point of recording this video, the qtum.org version will have K Fisher here instead of Spaceman Holdings. So if you are on that one, just change that. Put Spaceman Holdings here. This image is just a little bit more up to date. There was a slight difference, and this one will be more correct per se. They'll both work, but this one definitely use Spaceman Holdings. Another slight difference will be that the qtum.org version will have a different option on the Docker container. All that does is that when you run it on the terminal, it will show kind of like the blockchain, what it's doing, and like every time a block is mined, it'll kind of pop up. You can't interact with it, it's just there to see it. So if you are running that one and you see that, don't worry, just open another terminal to open the QCLI later. Otherwise, in this new one, we took it off because really you don't interact with it, so you don't need it. So just letting you know in case you do see that difference. So I'm not going to run this command because I already have it running. As you saw before, here Docker ps, I already have mine running. So in order to interact with your running local blockchain, you just want to run this command right here. So copy and paste it, type it out, whatever you want. And then you're in the QCLI. So you want to do QCLI generate 500. What this will do is generate 500 blocks on your kind of local blockchain. It should have already done that when you deployed it, but it's all just good practice to make sure that everything's going to be running smoothly. So do that. It'll take a couple of seconds, and then it'll output all the block hashes. All the block addresses on your screen, and then you're ready to go. So this is QCLI is super useful. We're going to use it a little bit later for a couple of things, but really, if you want to test it out, just do QCLI help. It'll show you all the different commands you can use. Definitely play around with this. You can interact with your blockchain. Get information about the blockchain, including the block count, the hash, all those kind of things. You can get transaction information. You can create wallets, get the wallet transactions, send tokens to the wallets. You can do a lot of different things. So take a look at all these commands and play around with the QCLI. It's super useful. It's super interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but otherwise we won't really use it all that much. All right, so once you've done that, you're ready to get started. So if you are aware, Qtum actually uses the EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine, meaning that you can create smart contracts the same way that you can on Ethereum. You can use Solidity to write those contracts and publish them exactly as you would on Ethereum. So that's really cool. So if you're kind of already familiar with Ethereum, you'll fit right in contract creation on Qtum. Otherwise, in order to create contracts, if you're not aware, you want to use Solidity. Here, go to the documentation, and just take a read of it, and this whole documentation will go through the entirety. What is Solidity? How to use it? It'll go in depth into all the different things you can do, like the types, the structure of a contract, etc. Get familiar with it if you're not. It's super simple, super easy. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube to get started with Solidity. So we're gonna kind of look at simple smart contracts that it offers, because we just want something really easy. We're gonna use this coin right here. It's the same one I have up here actually. If you want to follow along with what I'm doing, then this is the one I'm using. Just copy and paste this contract right here, and you're gonna go into the File Explorer and paste it here, right? So this is what I have right here. Cool. So once you have that going, it's a very simple contract. It's a coin contract. It's a kind of bare bones structure of a contract of an initial coin offering, right? You have a minter, which is going to be the contract creator, send some coins to that minter, and then that minter can send other people coins to their address, right? So really easy, really simple. I'm not going to go super in depth about what it does and how it works. That's more a Solidity tutorial kind of a video. This is just to show you what you can do once you have a contract. All right, so let's compile this. You're going to see an error here. That's completely normal in what I'm doing. I'll explain why. The latest local version, when you see right here, it'll default to, right now at this point, to 0.4.19. You see here, Solidity is it's actually already at 0.4.25, 25 being in development. So if we change that to 0.25, choose your compiler, we'll still get an error. Why? Because 0.25 is still pre-release. As you see, this pre-release compiler version, please don't use it in production. So let's not do that. Just let's follow some best practice. We'll change to 0.24. So scroll down until you see 0.24. There's a lot of them. Go to the last one. It really doesn't matter, but this will be the most up to date. We'll still get an error. And if you go to Remix and use this exact contract, you'll get this exact error because that's the compiler that Remix is using as well, 0.4.24. And you'll see here at the end of why it gets an error. The nightly builds are considered to be strictly less than the released version, right? So we can't really use 0.24 yet. So change this to 0.23. There's nothing in this contract that 0.23 doesn't have that 0.24 does. So we'll just compile it at 0.23 using the 0.24 here, and everything looks good. It compiles. Perfect. Quick note, if you don't see any of these here, just make sure you have ad block disabled. I was having some trouble earlier where I couldn't see any of the other compiler versions, and that was because I had my ad block enabled, ad guard specifically, and then I disabled it and fixed it. So if you don't see that, take in mind it could be your ad block. Anyway, so now that we have a contract that compiles successfully, we can run it, right? So here we see that it's connecting to our RPC, the local blockchain that we're running at localhost 9888. This is autofilled, so as long as you run the command that is on the help tab, you're good. You don't need to change anything here. Take into consideration, if you would like to run the local network on a server outside of your computer, you can totally do that. Change localhost to the IP address of that server, and just make sure that you've opened the port that you're connecting to. So if you're keeping the command the same and you're doing it to 9888, then open port 9888. If you do a different port, then just make sure to open that port as well. And you can totally connect this to a remote kind of like test network. Anyway, so once you have it running, here you have account. These are all the different addresses you can use to create the contract that have Qtum inside them. This Qmix just pulls that from the local network, the local blockchain that you're running. Everything else you can leave the same. Choose the contract here. We only have one, so choose it and deploy it. You'll see the output right here. That's going to be the contract address right there. And the really cool thing is, similar to Remix, to those of you who have used it, you can interact with your contract right here. So you don't even have to do anything else. You don't need to like change or connect to it in some remote way. No, it's right here. It's perfect. And you can do whatever functions are in there. So let's find the minter address, and that's the owner of this contract. That's going to be us. So okay. Note here, the address does not start with a Q. For those of you that know, Qtum addresses should start with a Q. That's because this is a hex address. And it's really important to know this, because here on Qmix, if an address is an input value, you need to input it as a hex address, not a Qtum address. So if you, for example, you send and you want to send it to a Qtum address, you need to first change it to a hex address. And this is where the QCLI will come in handy. And I said, this is really the only other example I'm going to use. Here, raw transaction examples, we have some commands from hex address and get hex address. So if we have a hex address like the one we have and we want the Qtum address for whatever reason, you do from hex address, QCLI from hex address, and then you put that hex address that you got. And it'll output the Qtum address. Now if you want the hex address, then you go up, I forgot what it was. It was from hex address. I mean from, no, that's the one we just did. Get hex address. So you do QCLI get hex address, put the Qtum address, and it'll output the hex address. So if you want to change it between those two, that's what the QCLI can help you with. Really useful. You might need to do that when you're testing your contracts. So keep that in mind. So for now, we're just going to test out a couple of these functions to make sure that our contract is working and it's interacting with our blockchain properly. So let's check the balance of our minter. Should have 0, perfect. And now let's add some coins to our minter. So we need that address, and let's give it 1,000 coins. Mint, that's the transaction ID, and let's check the balance again. 1,000, perfect. All right, so super simple, super easy way to deploy your contracts to a local network and test them. And once you're happy that they work, all right, then let's go to the next stage. So next, what you're going to want to do is go to the Qtum wallet. A lot of tutorials at this point will still use the QCLI to deploy your contract to the testnet or the mainnet. This is a different way to do it, and it's a super, super simple and easy way to do it, and I really like it, and I think you'll enjoy it too. So you're going to go to the Qtum web wallet. It's just qtumwallet.org. You'll land on this page. Yes, all these things, basic security measures that you want to take. Press confirm, and here, if you don't have a wallet that you're going to use for this, you can generate a new wallet. First, you're obviously going to want to test stuff on the testnet. So quickly go to settings, change to testnet. Make sure you do this, otherwise you're going to be in the mainnet. So go to testnet, press confirm, and now you're on the testnet. So if you generate a new wallet, it'll generate a testnet wallet. So if you don't have a wallet, generate a new one, create a password for it, download the key file, right? So save it, and then you'll have a new wallet. Now, I already have one, so I'll just restore that real quick. You need that key file that you just downloaded. and the password, and then you can restore it. And so this is the testnet quantum address that I have, and you'll have no tokens. I already have some tokens, but I'm going to show you how to get testnet tokens. Super simple. So you want to copy your address, and you're going to go to this link right here, testnet faucet quantum info. So you're going to go right here to the faucet. You're going to copy paste your address, and then you're going to click the check mark. And your quantum testnet tokens request was added to the queue. You will receive your tokens shortly. Thank you. So in fact, probably already happened right here. It's on pending right here. Yeah, that's our address right there. Let's click on it. Testnetquantum.org. If you go to there and then you just put your address in the search bar right here, you can go look at addresses. In this case, it's already taken to the one that we want. And here we go. All right. So the transactions that, all right, perfect. That means that unconfirmed transaction. There we go. So the transaction has been registered. It's still unconfirmed. We need to get some confirmations in order to receive those quantum. You just refresh this page, as many times as you want until you get the quantum. I already have some, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. But yeah, so that's how you just wait for it, and eventually your wallet will have more balance. So I already have enough, so I don't really mind about waiting to get that quantum. Anyway, so that's how you get testnet quantum. All right, so this is where it gets really cool. From the quantum wallet, and this is a testnet, but if you wanted to do this in the mainnet, you do the exact same thing, just in settings, you make sure that you're on the mainnet and not on the testnet. So let's go down here, and you can see create token, create contract, send to contract, call a contract. So you see, from this interface, you can already deploy and interact with your contract. So let's create a contract, and this is on the official quantum testnet. So you'll see here, you need the bytecode for that contract. So let's go back to Qtum. We go to the compiler tab, select the contract, click details, and you'll get that bytecode. So let's copy paste that bytecode. Super easy to do. All right, awesome. All right, and we have the bytecode. You can leave all of these things as they are, and you press confirm. Confirm again, and you can view that transaction right here. So we're going to get another of that like swanky tune in a second once that transaction kind of goes through. And so this is the quantum that we were requesting before. Now there should be a new unconfirmed transaction, which is our, there we go, our contract. So we got our quantum from before, got 32 quantum from it. And now our next unconfirmed transaction is right here, and this is the actual deployed contract. So there you go, you've officially deployed a contract on the testnet, and if you wanted to do it on the mainnet, the only thing that you would change is actually on the wallet, make sure you're on the mainnet and you have a mainnet wallet with quantum in order to deploy it. Easy. All right, so now let's go to this, to our contract. So this is a contract right here, that's the transaction, this is the actual contract address. All right, cool, so here's our contract. Here's the contract, the bytecode, here's the assembly code, should you be interested in that. And so we're actually gonna have to wait until this gets confirmed in order to actually interact with it. There we go. And it's confirmed, cool. All right, so now we have our confirmed contract that's been officially deployed to the quantum testnet. Right, assembly code, the bytecode, etc. All right, awesome. So let's copy that contract address because we're going to need it now. Because now, here's the next really cool thing. Now that it's deployed, really easy way to create that contract. Also, just side note, if you want to create a token, really easy way to create that token right here. It'll do kind of like everything. You don't even have to write the smart contract for it anymore. Anyway, so let's call on this contract. We have the contract address. Now we need the ABI. Now, how do you get that? Super easy way to do it. Unfortunately, it's not on Qtum yet. It will be, we're planning on it. But since it uses the EVM, we can actually use Remix to get that ABI. So, copy and paste your contract. It's already not here, I'm just doing this to make sure it's completely the same. You compile it, it compiles, and similarly to Qtum, you press details, except this one will give you a lot more. right? So it gives you the bytecode as Qmix did over here, and the ABI is right here. So you want to copy that ABI, go to the web wallet, and paste the ABI. So all of this is a JSON that basically tells you how to interact with that contract, right? It has the name of the functions, you know, like mint, what it outputs, whether it's payable, what type it is it non-payable, etc., and like the things you need, you know, the inputs, receiver address, amount, etc., 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 etc. All right, so now that you have the ABI, you have the contract address. Now it gives you the list of methods you can do, so you can interact with it. It's awesome. So let's find the minter address. All right, here you see there's a bunch of trailing zeros, but right here, that's going to be the hex address of the minter. So we confirm that. And you can actually go to the QCLI to confirm that, right? So like I showed you before, you can do QCLI from hex address, because as you saw, since it did not start with a Q, we know that it is a hex address and not a quantum address. And QV39MD, we go back, QV39MD right here, that's our address. That's the address of our wallet, right? Wallet info, QV39MD. So that's the minter, right? So this wallet, since it deployed that contract was the owner. You'll have to do it again if you kind of leave that thing. But as you saw, you could interact with every single one of those functions, and whatever output it is, if you need to reinterpret it, you can use the QCLI to do so. But there you go, a really easy way to interact with your contract that's been deployed to the official testnet and or official mainnet, depending on what you're doing. All right, cool. So now I've shown you how to kind of create that contract, interact with it, test it, and once you're happy with it, deploy it to either the testnet or the full mainnet. So now that you've done that, your contract is out there, it's in the world, and it's ready to be used. So now you would start the rest of the development of your Dapp. And so for that, your best friend is going to be Qtum.js. Sorry, wrong link. I'm going to go to Qtum.js. It's on the Qtum project GitHub, Qtum.js, and just take a look at it. There's easy to install npm install Qtum.js, and you just import the Qtum.js on whatever JavaScript library that you're going to be using for whatever framework that you want. So what's really cool is that you can now use whatever framework you're familiar with, Angular or anything that you can use JavaScript with, you can use Qtum.js with, right? So you can develop your front end, you can develop the back end, and you can interact with your contract through Qtum.js. So this kind of is a very simple README. But they have a really extensive documentation, so you're going to want to look at that. So click on the documentation, and it'll take you to the Qtum.js documentation. This is super, super thorough, and it'll take you through everything you need to know. So it'll kind of go through an introduction, and it'll kind of go again through running a Qtum RPC. You don't really need to know that, so let's go straight down to here. They have an ERC20 example that if you want to go through, there's a whole GitHub for this example that you can just clone and play around with if you want to do that. Super easy, super simple. But here down, Qtum contract and Qtum RPC are the main ones you're going to be looking at. This will kind of explain how to connect to the Qtum here, to the Qtum network, and this one will explain how to manipulate your contract, and this one will tell you how to use the Qtum RPC. So we're going to focus on the first two. So here you go. Qtum, you don't really need Solr, although I guess you could use it. You don't really need it because you already have the ABI. I already showed you how to get that. So Qtum, connect to whatever network you want. Again, here you can also connect to the test network if you so wish. Otherwise, read the docs and you'll be able to. It'll tell you how to connect to either the testnet or the actual mainnet. Then we go to the contract. You go Qtum mytoken Qtum.contract. Here it'll input a sol file, right? So if you have your sol file in your inside your folder, then you can just connect to that. So that's super easy. You can just copy paste that. However, even easier if you already have the ABI, you can actually use the ABI because all this does is create the ABI. MyToken equals Qtum.contract, and then the sol file will create the ABI. So if you already have the ABI, you can just do MyToken and then the JSON file for the ABI. However, if you're not comfortable with doing that, you can just also connect to the sol file. Super easy, and basically that just does what we did with the wallet over here when you call the contract. Anyway, so yeah, it'll give you a lot of different examples of what you can do once you have that API. You've called the contract. You see mytoken.call total supply. So here total supply is one of the functions in the example that they're using here. But here you could do, for example, mint. So you would do await mytoken.call and then mint. Yeah, and here another example right here, mint. And if it takes parameters, then you just put the parameters right there. So that would be the address. In fact, this is exactly how our function works too. Mint, the minter address, and how much coins to give them. That's exactly what we did. So this is how you would do it using Qtum.js. And yeah, so just kind of read through it. You know how to send, checking the logs. You can get the logs from whatever transactions you use. You can get information from the blockchain where it currently is, what it's currently doing. And at the end, if you really wanted to, you could use a Qtum RPC, which is basically how to interact with the QCLI, which I showed you. But you already have a way to do that. You could also you can connect the QCLI to the mainnet and testnet. It will just have to pull all the information from those beforehand, so it might take a while. But you will be you are able to do that through the command line, and don't have to do that through Qtum.js. But if you so wish, it explains how to do that. So anyway, yeah, just take a look at all these. It really goes through all the ways in which you can call and interact with your contract through a JavaScript library. And then that's awesome, because then you can just connect that to whatever you're working on, whatever application you're working on, connect that to your backend, connect that to your front end, connect it to whatever you're working on, whatever framework you're doing. You now have a JavaScript library to manipulate and interact with the contract that you have deployed into the testnet or mainnet. Right, so we've gone through all the steps of developing a Dapp, at least the initial steps that will get you all the way up to the point where you can focus on everything else that is not part of the Qtum aspect of everything. So I hope this was useful to you. Again, it's just a really easy step-by-step process of all the things you need to do to get started, and kind of it's more to show you the flow of things that you do, right, from contract creation to testing to deploying to finally actually interacting with that contract in your application and connecting that to the front end, should you wish to do that. Definitely take a look at the developer guide. Take a look at the Qtum GitHub. They have a lot of good guys there as well. Look at Medium posts, a lot of different things to help you out through your development process. But this should definitely be enough to get you started on each of those initial stages of your Dapp development. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you liked the video. Thank you.